guys, welcome to another episode of Legacy Speaks. I'm bringing you another installment of the Mind Your Business series, and I'm so excited to have Miss April Love with me. She's a PR maven as well as a brand specialist, and she is just going to give us a whole bunch of insight on holistic wellness and entrepreneurship. So welcome, Miss April.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, yay.
This is so exciting.
So tell people a little bit about April Love, the Ask April Love brand, whatever you want to talk about.
Oh wow, the Ask April Love brand. So Ask April Love is the whole overarching home of my brand, and I am, as you mentioned, a PR strategist, brand strategist, and I want to say a life strategist as I transition into this next aspect of my life. I feel like I have worked with some of the greatest brands, and I feel like I've been so blessed to be in the position to see things unfold. Things go from nothing to something. So after over over a decade, I don't know, it's been a number of years in doing this in the field of PR and working in entertainment specifically, that I'm transitioning into a place of life strategy.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell for the most part.
That's awesome. And so over the course of your career, you've definitely blossomed and evolved.
Right.
And to be able to see you start off in the entertainment industry, whether it's like the PR or just the brand strategy side, and then segueing into production as well, whether it's TV shows, award shows, or just shows in general, or content in general.
Right.
How have you been able to establish that transition throughout your career?
Well, circle back about almost 20 years ago when I really was, really getting myself immersed in the business. I had a little stint in corporate on the PR side because I've always been PR marketing driven. But then I got the entertainment bug, and I worked with production companies. I worked with Bad Boy and Dallas Austin and just all of these up-and-coming bright producers, Brian Michael Cox and Jazzy Faye. So the music scene was my first entree, and it was booming. So working with the LaFaces and the Aristas and Universal Music, it's a very unapologetic business because there's no 24 hours that the entertainment business is not on. So I was on. So it was never, I went from a 9-to-5 kind of traditional coming out of college thinking this is what it is, to like I'm working around the clock. I'm in studio sessions, I'm on flights, I'm working with artists. I'm turning into like this robotic being, just trying to make it happen, trying to sell records, the whole nine. So I worked in the music industry space for a very long time. I still do actually, but like straight up at labels for a good portion of the beginning of my career. And then when the music industry started to dwindle, I've always been a reinvention specialist, so I have no problem with the pivot. So the relationships that I built kind of led me into the world of TV, and I had cast it a little bit because kind of sometimes the PR world is the place, the most social. Right. So everybody. So they'll go, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. And it was the onset of reality TV. And I had the opportunity to work with the Real Housewives of Atlanta franchise and Bravo from the very beginning, casting with them from Lisa Wu to Cynthia Bailey and Peter Thomas. And Peter's someone, for instance, that I met in the music industry. And it was kind of like a cool, smooth transition into television and production. And from doing PR also, I really kind of mastered the art of event production. So it was kind of like, production, and then I could work in PR kinda. So I started doing a lot of red carpet stuff and had amazing mentors like Tasha Witten-Griggs, who's an SVP over at TV One. I worked with her early at BET, so red carpets for the BET Awards, BET Hip Hop Awards, Soul Train Awards, Grammys. Even when VH1 had an award show, I worked that. I've worked Black Girls Rock. So I've always been kind of like moving with the flow of the industry. So I've always been career driven. So professionally, I felt like I had a plan, and I was just moving along, and I was evolving with the industry. So
there's a couple of things that you touched on that I really wanted to connect because it's extremely important to not only obtain those skills, but evolve with those skills.
Right.
Like you stated, you were able to take stuff from your 9-to-5 PR life and kind of segue into the music industry, and then from there you gained additional skills and you were able to apply that into different fields. And I think that's extremely important for today's professional, especially for those who are coming out of college. And so what advice would you give to people who are looking to get into the industry, whether it's from an artistic standpoint or from a professional standpoint?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that, because it's so funny that that's become like a big part of my day-to-day conversation. I'm very hands-on with young people. I'm very hands-on with millennials, and even people that are actually coached by me in brand and life strategy and that sort of thing. And that seems to be the recurring request. You know, how do I pivot? I can say it all day long. You know, these great buzzwords like transition, pivot, reinvent. But what are the practical steps to do that? Like, they're not easy. And then a lot of these young people are forced to come out of college and become entrepreneurs. And that's not something I really necessarily had to deal with. It was a choice for me. Like, entrepreneurship called me from the beginning, because I would always go into a work environment and be like, oh, why are you doing it like this? I feel like we could do this better. Do you have to come in at this time? You know, like, girl, you don't want a job, you know? So entrepreneurship was in my DNA, but that's not everybody's. You know, there are people that work, and that's amazing. But in order to really kind of figure out that thing, to kind of circle back to what you said, is you have to really come to a term of self-assessment. And I try to say, I don't care if you're 18 or 38, you have to self-assess. Because if it's like, I don't care if you worked at a job for 8 years, or you earned your degree or your master's in this and such and such, but there's an inner calling, and you take the time to really just turn off social media, turn off TV, turn off your parents, turn off your friends, turn off your significant other, and really say, hey, you know, if I'm really sitting here in an environment where I feel completely at peace, where I feel like, okay, I am in my life's work. What am I doing? And those are the things you have to start to really map out, write down. And even if you're in school, start to figure out early. Don't find yourself in an environment where I'm taking this job, but I hate it. No, start to figure out early. I like to work with kids. Oh, I like to write. Oh, I like, and everything needs to line up with that. And it would be such an easier transition to move forward and evolve and flow with whatever work environment you end up in. I don't know if I answered the question,
no,
but in a roundabout way.
Yeah,
because that's what I try to tell young people, because they come, especially interns and people that are still in school, they're so inundated with opinions, you know, from family and trying to please the family, or even sometimes I see them even trying to take care of the family, because they may be a first generation college student that's graduating. Maybe nobody else has a degree, so they feel that the weight of the world or the family's on their shoulders. So they're like, I'm gonna be a doctor, I'm gonna be a lawyer. But are you gonna be? But what are you called to be? What if you're called to be a writer, you know, or a public speaker, or to the clergy? Are you going to just completely disregard that God-given destiny to do something that you think, oh, I can get a quick check? And then you're going to be miserable. Then you're going to be needing the services of somebody to help you understand why you're in this big quandary 10 years later, you know? So,
and trust me, I can definitely relate, because, you know, I'm a first generation student, and coming out of college, it's just kind of like, well, dang, I'm miserable. Had like this postgraduate experience, and then definitely moved here and definitely had the opportunity to work and connect with you. And that's where I learned just my calling, or what.
And I visually saw that happening. I would be like, something is going on, because you would be I will say that what's amazing about you is that you were still able to function in that place of trying to get clarity and understanding. Some people, they shut down. They're not able to do that. They're like, I don't know. I'm in a state of stuck. But you're like, no, I'm gonna figure it out. But while I'm doing that, I'm gonna be over here earning another degree. I'm gonna be, you know what I'm saying? So that's awesome.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah. And so I think trying to work with that cognitive dissonance, you know, where it's just like we see our future self, the end goal overall, but we don't know how to close that gap in between. And so how do we kind of work the middle effectively to get to our personal and professional goals?
Right. Well, just as I applauded you, I have to be transparent about me. I'll let that, I don't know if I did it effectively. I mean, I really don't, because in my 20s, I was literally all over the place. All over the place. I'm like, oh, I want to work here. I don't want to work here. I'll submit a resume. I don't want to work here. Oh, I want to start this business. I don't want to start this business. I went through a lot of that, and that's why I'm so vocal about it, because I really want my learning curve, that I had to really be something that inspires people to have a shorter one. Because I'm like, look, if it does not, and please, if you don't hear anything else, please trust your spirit. Plus, trust that discerning part of yourself that says, this is not right for me. I should go here. I mean, like, even in every decision, people that have wasted a whole lot of time being in their hometown. Oh, because I need to go back, because I feel like, I have an obligation to do things for my family, or, whatever city I ended up graduating in, taking a job there, and then it's 4 years later, or, oh, I'm in this relationship, oh, it's draining. Trust your God-given intuition and make decisions based on that, because it's that whole, you hear it in every culture, trust your gut, go confidently in the directions of your dreams, but people just aren't doing that. Right. And it's causing you to have these long gaps. Life is not, it's wonderful, but I feel like it was just Christmas. So life is flying, and in the midst of life flying, you don't want to be in a state of floating in the wind, pillar to post, confusion, when you don't have to be. Really, if you just take the time, you can really get to the place where, like, okay, set real attainable goals. Like, I want to have done this by 8 months, and put it, like, if you see I have like a chalkboard wall, post-it notes, I want to put it up here because then I'm accountable. But if I just wake up and I go with the flow, it'll be 3 years later. And I feel like we stretch that time out unnecessarily. It's the gift and the curse of free will, because nobody's gonna come along and push you into it. Like, hey, this is what you should be doing. Go this way. Answer this question. Don't answer that call. Turn off this. Turn this on. But if you just trust those instincts, you can really, like, bring that down and take that time to really kind of just accelerate where you're supposed to be sooner. Right.
And to add to that, in order to trust your gut, you have to quiet the noise. And I know that's something that you definitely had to learn while working in such a high-paced industry. Yeah. And so how have you been able to quiet the noise and tend to your spiritual, emotional, and mental needs as well?
Oh my gosh. Now that I have done effectively, I feel like I have really, especially the past 2 years, coming up on 24 months of consistent, intentional self-care. I probably have lived one of the noisiest lives ever. In every industry I've worked in has been chaotic. I've worked with some of the most chaotic clients, and having worked in entertainment, even in the faith-based. I even chose people in faith-based that were kind of chaotic. So it was just like, it was always noise, it was always hustle and bustle. Even working in New York and working in Atlanta, it's just been, very hard for me to find that place of just where I can go and just kind of like decompress. But I haven't, like, the key word that I was saying was intentional. Right. So the past 2 years I've been intentional about doing that. I actually ended up going to a school called the Institute of Integrated Nutrition and was certified as a wellness and health coach. But then that gave me the freedom and the knowledge to know that I needed my own coach. So I secured a coach, also started therapy, which I am an advocate for. Baby, that is an amazing thing to be. And connected from a spiritual perspective, got very involved with my ministry, found a ministry that was perfect for me. And I find balance in all of that. Like, when I have certain days that I don't come into work early. I go and meet with my coach. I go to my therapy session. I have lunch with myself. I go into a coffee shop and, create a things to do list for the entire week, and just find spaces that feed me. That, I can have a nice glass of tea, and I can, turn my phone down, and I can really just be with myself and talk to April about what April really needs for the month to accomplish the goals, personal and professional. Right. So that has been an intent, and without it, there's no telling what other prescriptions I would have been signed up for this past couple of years. It's totally like it's a life-changing thing to make a decision and really take care of you.
One thing that I appreciate about your transparency is the fact that you have not only a team from a professional standpoint, but you have a support system team, and that's definitely so important. We kind of feel like we have to ride solo in these life roles, or that we have to do everything on our own, and that's definitely not the case. Whether or not you're hiring somebody, or whether or not you have like that friend or family member there, you always have somebody in your pocket to contact or to speak to on a regular basis, because we often get so bogged down with our thoughts, and that's when things become a big issue. Our thoughts impact our behavior. So thank you so much for doing that.
And another thing, that's good. Yes, they do impact. I don't want to make it a black thing or a black girl thing, but I'm a black girl, so I gotta speak on that. But I mean, the value of trust, because a lot of us black women have trust issues, and when we have these sister circles, and even family circles, we don't have a level of trust where we can be really transparent. So we never dump. We just carry this, the disappointments. I have a sister circle in my personal, and I have a sister circle in my professional, and we're honest and we try to be as transparent as possible. I know I do, because my thing is I feel like it benefits you to say, hey, I worked really hard on this client, and I just felt like I almost felt defeated. I felt, there was no gratitude. And being able to talk to somebody in a professional space, and they can share their story, and we can just say, we might shed a couple tears about it, and then we say, well, what about this? We're not gonna let this happen again, and girl, you deserve better. And we start to build each other up. Right. And then, in my personal, I can be very honest with my girls and say, hey, like they'll call me and they're like, why weren't you at church today? What's going on with you? I saw what you posted. And they're really genuinely concerned. It's not superficial. It's not phony. And you have to get these circles. You have to get this support system. You have to have a team. If you need a therapist, get a therapist. If you are attending a local church and you need to talk to somebody in ministry, talk to them. Don't hold this stuff in and have this amazing, set of lashes and brows, and you look amazing. You pull up in your nice car, and you have a decent job, or you're in a, pretty much, decent relationship, but everything is not, it's a holistic. Right. Because it's like, okay, 60% is okay, but 40% is like, oh, I'm dying. Nobody knows. I'm sitting here, don't you see me? No, people don't see you, because they got their own 40%, and you need to just open your mouth and not be afraid to say, look, I need somebody to talk to. Hey, girl, are you doing anything for dinner? Can we just go and just get away? I didn't do it either. I would just go home, and my resolve was to get in my bed. I'm like, I'm waiting until tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna be better. Tomorrow will be just as, I didn't solve anything. I didn't talk about it. So I really want to advocate the fact of talking. Because that's another thing. When I started therapy, I was like, I thought the therapist was gonna, solve my problems. I went in there with my checklist, girl. I was like, girl, I found myself. I'm emotional today, girl. I feel like, I work with a bunch of men, and I feel like they treat me like, the girl in the room, and I'm not a part of the boys club, and I feel like this. And then, I pour it all out, and then she gets to these other rules, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about abandonment. I don't want to talk about my parents. I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. And then when I talk about it, I want you to tell me what I should do. That is not what therapy is.
No, it is not. And I'm glad that you touched on that. We talked about that before. The therapeutic process is guiding the client to just be able to unpack everything that you guys are dealing with. Right. And so a lot of people kind of jump into therapy like, so you gonna answer my problems or not?
Yeah. I'm like, what should I do?
About to do this? Like, no. And a lot of times, we're trying to remain superficial, and it's so crazy because we try to remain superficial in our professional lives and our social lives and things like that. But if we kind of reach back into the things that had happened in our past, or the things that we've experienced over our life, it kind of shows you how those constructs have impacted the way that we treat others and treat ourselves as well. So
that's amazing, because but I really didn't. It was almost an out of body experience, because I was like, who wants to go in and say, I had good parents, but I was adopted. Oh, your parents left you? Like, what's wrong with you? Or the people, that to go in and kind of talk about divorce when, you're talking to people that don't have failed marriages. It's a shame. It's an embarrassment. It's crazy. It's the things that you take on even as a child. Like, I was like, what do you mean I'm holding myself accountable for things my parents did? No, I'm not. Wait a minute. Yes, I am.
Maybe I am.
Maybe I am. I don't want to talk about that.
But it goes back to that trust piece. Not only are you trying to trust other people, but you have to learn how to trust yourself.
Right.
Be able to trust yourself to be vulnerable enough to stand in that mirror and say, these are the issues that have definitely created this bubble and the way that I view the world.
Absolutely. And to be where I am today and the level of vulnerability that I have I'm naked and not ashamed at all. I'm quick to tell you. And I feel like that has also played deeply into my ability to be a leader, to be an effective entrepreneur, because I feel like in my mind that I readied myself so long to just trust in me. And then when I learned the art of trusting in others, I feel like that's how you can build amazing teams. Because I'm vulnerable enough to be honest with you, so my expectation of you is to be the same with me. So there's a trust and there's a camaraderie on our team that I feel like allows us to really be better than most, you know, so.
And I love that, because a lot of leaders feel like they have to have their guard up all the time.
Yeah.
And so how do you maintain a level of vulnerability within your leadership role?
And not look weak.
And especially,
I know.
As us as black women, and you are a part of the boys club. A lot of times you're in spaces where you're the only female in the room.
Absolutely.
And so how do you remain vulnerable in such a cutthroat industry?
Prayer and fasting. No, no, I say that, you know, but I do. But seriously, it does allow me to come into a place of knowing how to articulate certain things. I'm not gonna spill all the beans, but I'm gonna show you. That's another thing which led me from one ministry to another, because I was just like, I felt like I was under ministry leadership one time that, my God, I'm like, they ain't never said nothing. They like right next to Jesus. I'm like, they ain't done nothing. So I'm like, it's very hard for me to be open and vulnerable with you when I feel like you are faultless, like you are levitating. But being able to not necessarily falter to the point that I look weak to a team or to anybody that I'm leading, but where I look relatable. Like, I get it. Like, if you say that, you know, I'm weary and da-da-da-da, it's more so from a perspective of let me share with you, almost like a case study. Not let me like, girl, men ain't, you know what I mean? Girl, they would drive. It's not that. You have to have a level of maturity, and you really have to hone a skill of communication. And I feel like those are the things that I've really, you know, been able and been blessed with to kind of really get a real kind of, I guess, a higher level of understanding of how to do that effectively, communicate. So I don't communicate to the fact that I am showing the vulnerability to the point that I'm saying that we're gonna be weak together. But because of what I've gone through and what I'm willing to share with you, I can see you coming out on the other side just like I did. So trying to remain relatable, yet still be mature in the conversation.
And instilling some level of hope.
Yes, showing that there's a light, showing that there's, you know, definitely a new mercy, a morning joy that you will see greater if you keep pressing towards, because all of it's just teaching moments. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if it's personal relationships, business relationships, you learn. If you're not dead, you know what I'm saying? It's not a fail. It's just like, okay, well, this just didn't work out, or this wasn't a good fit. But what I learned was, this is what then you know what's not good for you. You know what the red flags are. You know what to look out for. You know what feels right and how to trust your gut, because I've gone through this. Coming fresh out of college, sometimes that's not the case. You know, they may think, oh, I've gone through so many things. You know, my life is just, you know, devastating right now. I lost my first job out of school, you know, or I can't find a job. I'm like, baby, you got a whole world full of hurts and letdowns and disappointments to ready yourself for. So you got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep it pushing. So
outside of therapy and self-care, what are some other things that you personally implement in your holistic wellness journey?
Well, I am a book junkie, a content junkie. I love documentaries. I love conferences. I love learning new things. I'm forever the student. I don't feel like there's any time that you can't learn something from somebody. So I try to put myself in a position to continue to advance my education and my knowledge of my craft, professional and personal development, holistically. I really take time to also work on things that are important to me. Like I'm in the process of finishing my book. So that to me is self-care too, to get those goals accomplished and not just let them sit on these post-it notes and on these to-do lists. Actually, and then celebrating your accomplishments.
Right.
You know, when I was able to get my blog and podcasting and stuff going, I really celebrated myself. Like, you know, this is something that you've been trying to do for 3-4 years. And when it happens, you have to stop and kind of embrace, and then embrace the love that comes from other people too. I've learned to do that because I was one of those people that wouldn't necessarily take the win. You're like, oh, you're doing this. I'm like, oh, you know.
Yes.
You know, oh,
Why do we do that?
I don't know what that is. And somebody's like, oh, your hair looks amazing. I'm so proud of you for getting, you're like, yeah, no, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Those things are huge. And when you do embrace them and when you do celebrate them, you're inspiring so many. So embracing my accomplishments, taking the win, continue to educate myself as much as possible, putting myself in positions to win, and definitely keeping my spiritual life fed too as well. So.
I love the fact that you had things that were personal to you and not just a list of self-care things like, oh, journal 5 times a week kind of thing. You know, and it is important to have those things that we know will be enjoyable and not something that's going to be so rote or routine.
Yeah, because then, I mean, rituals are important and I have incorporated them. Like, take your vitamins, go to the gym, get up and pray, listen to this. Okay, those are great. Those are rituals. Those are the things that you see like people like Richard Branson and Tony Robbins are going to continue to shove down your throat because that builds you to the point where you have these amazing habits, and habits breed success. You know, like success leaves clues. So what are these great people doing? They have rituals. But there's some real attainable, like you said, things that are gonna, you know, make me feel amazing. Like I said, I want to have 10 employees by a certain time. I want to grow my business and scale my business in this way. I want to produce my documentary. I want to write my book. So those are tangible things that are not just, you know, rituals, burn my candle and say the things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
No, I have some tangible things too that I want to execute. So yeah, and I hold myself at a high regard for being, you know, accountable to me. And I will chastise myself and I will put myself on punishment when I do not meet certain things that I have set real specific dates for these goals to happen.
But I know at some point you've also learned how to be flexible with those goals as well. Because oftentimes we put more stress on ourselves when we're just like, oh no, I haven't met this goal at a certain time. But you've learned that it's okay.
I've learned,
yeah,
and that's it now. So that's a work in progress. I am kind of hard on myself. Yes, because I was really what did she say? My coach. Oh, comparison disparaging. I can be in despair because I compare. That's what social media. That's the vicious nature of social media, because I will beat myself up, and like I said, this has been an amazing year of coming off of some of these bad habitual things I was doing to myself, by putting all these, like you said, this tightrope on myself, like you have to get it done by such and such or you are a failure. No, I'm like, come on, that's extreme. Yeah. But it was equivalent to that if I felt bad because, you know, my girlfriend released her book. Where's your book? Oh, go back to bed. Start over tomorrow. No, I'm like, well, what I do is I'm applauding her. I'm like, I'm inspired by you. This is awesome. And then sometimes I would have a conversation with the person who has the podcast or the person who's released the book and say, hey, you know, how much time did you really sit down and, you know, because I know you're an entrepreneur too. How long, you know, did it take you to sit down and get the book done? And did you hire an editor? You know, just turn it into something, like I said, a teaching moment and not a beat me up moment. So yeah, I will say I'm 80% at that. Yeah. But I've definitely kind of come to terms with the fact that the comparison thing is over with. Because everybody's journey is their journey. Right. You know, your chapter 1 is my chapter 15, which is your chapter 28. So yeah. And that's why I wanted to go back and be like, yeah, reiterate that. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Because oftentimes we do have perfectionist syndrome where we feel like, oh my gosh, I need to get this accomplished by a certain time. And then we kind of break down a bit. But if we change our perspective and say, okay, what would life be like if I didn't make this goal? Will the world end? No. Right. The world wouldn't end. That was very therapeutic. I love that because it makes you like, wait a minute. Put myself in the mirror and say, hey, You know, like really take that into consideration, because that can happen. That does happen. But I definitely have flexibility. Like, I will change a release date or a due date at any given moment. It's like write it in pencil. Remain flexible, because things change, things come up. Allow yourself that time to get it right.
And so the last thing I wanted to cover, because holistic wellness is so important, the reason why I'm such an advocate over holistic well-being in general is because oftentimes people think that we just function in one being, and we don't just function in one being. You have your emotions, you have your thoughts, you have your behaviors, you also have your relationships. And the whole purpose of the therapeutic process, or therapy, or counseling, whatever you want to call it, is to make sure that you are living, I hate the term living your best life, but
I know.
but living your best self in every aspect of your life. If whatever you're dealing with, whether it's stress or depression or some mental illness or mental disorder, is impeding on your functionality in one aspect, it definitely does impact the other aspects as well. And so how have you unapologetically pursued holistic wellness in not just your personal life, but your professional life as well?
Ooh. Well, we'll start with my personal life. My personal life, as I approach, my, 7th year of being a cancer survivor, I went full throttle into understanding the body, the anatomy, the energy of us as beings, and finding like what works for me. What food is going to make me live my best life? What food is going to make me feel the way that I need to feel? What kind of physical activity? And that has been a journey, and that has been a trial and error kind of thing. But finding that and pursuing that made me just, like I said, I ended up going to this Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and I have, really put myself in a position to see a lot of talks and to get involved with a lot of associations like the Young Survival Coalition, and figuring out that a lot of these American Diabetes Association, American Cancer Society, and I hope I can say this, it's me, not necessarily her view, but I don't feel like they're doing anything to prevent these amazing, awful, terrible diseases from perpetuating us as a people. So I've started to really just educate myself and really become more of an advocate, and make myself more of a poster child for, okay, this happened, but this doesn't have to happen to you. So that holistic journey is still evolving with me. Through events, I've done things with Align Myself with Impact Church to do the Amazing You, and give platforms to people that are non-traditional, naturopaths, holistic practitioners, certain holistic trainers, and trying to connect people, because sometimes people perish for lack of knowledge. They don't know that, hey, these fruit snacks say this, and this is non-GMO, but it's insane, that it's giving you more sugar than 3 Snickers. So trying to really educate people is a big mission of mine, and also living the life that's exemplary of what I'm saying, So if you want to have Starbucks, I have Starbucks. What about almond milk? What about bringing in your own type of agave, or not just having stuff the way that people serve it to you and not believing the hype? And then from a professional perspective, I want to, and I will always create healthy environments, whereas I'm mindful of the people around me and the settings that we are working in. A lot of people are working in working spaces that are just unhealthy. Like it's not conducive for you to have self-care. They're not mindful of the fact that you have a family, or that your work environment needs to be prepped for you to live a healthy life and for you to have healthy exchanges. I'm consistently creating an environment of communication, an open door policy, over communicate, tell me what's on your mind. You're allowed to have a bad day. I know when I worked in corporate, I couldn't really have a bad day. I was apprehensive about calling in sick. I was just like, well, I gotta work, I gotta grind. I'm coming in sneezing, coughing on people at the Soul Train Awards. I remember one year, because at the end of the day, we're not necessarily mindful of the other person. People are out here having strokes while they're on tour. People are having, not like I was just listening to Dame Dash speak the other night, and he talked about how he has to wake up every morning and do, his insulin, and how he's really had to, really deal with the diabetic aspects. And he's not the only person. I'm happy that he even said that. So it's kind of like, hey, for every diabetic in here, it's just not you. Right. It's an epidemic. So just trying to figure out the best way to create those environments and create retreats and be mindful of what your team needs and what you need in order to be effective, because it's not just about the work, because when you're dead, the work is still going to be here.
Exactly.
Okay, they're still going to keep airing these television shows and putting out this music, and they're going to put up a couple posts about you on Facebook and you will be gone. So we are going to always, any environment I'm a part of, and even when it's not mine, if I go on a set, I was talking to people about are we, you know, let's be mindful of crafty. Let's be mindful of not having a whole bunch of sugar and junk on crafty.
Right.
What are the alternatives? Where is the granola? Where is the oatmeal? Where, you know? So I'm always that girl. I'm like, always.
Always.
I'm like, I'm here for the underdog. We all gotta be healthy. We all gotta be strong. You know, come into the environment like, do we need to pray? If it's chaos, I will stop and let's just pray. Let's, you know, this the mind, the body, and the spirit. That's it, period.
And controlling your environment, your atmosphere.
Yeah, and getting out of unhealthy environments. Yeah. It's okay to leave. It's okay to let go. It's okay to say, bye-bye. This is not for me. I wish you Godspeed. I pray all of you well, and I'll be on the next flight out of here.
Well, this has been great. April, did you want to talk about anything? I know you have your show. Are there any other things that you would like to share with the viewers?
Oh my gosh. Well, I definitely want everyone to tune in. I have launched the Ask April Love Show, which is my platform to do everything I just got through saying. Create environments for these amazing people like Sierra to come and have platforms. Because, you know, otherwise we're going to just sit around and keep seeing people, you know, I mean, how much Kavanaugh and Trump and other stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's cool, like that's a place for that, but there has to be a place for this.
Right. And
my mission is to have these TED Talk style platforms, but for people that are mindful, the people that are evolved, people that, you know, are on a God mission to really make sure that we're healthy in our mind, our body, and our spirit, and we have holistic wellness. Then we can stop saying the cliche of the best life, because we don't have to, because we'll be showing it and living it. So the Ask April Love Show on all platforms, through podcasts, it'll be on, like, you know, your iTunes and that sort of thing. But follow my pages. On Instagram, it's ASKAPRIL, Ask April Love. And on Facebook, it's the Ask April Love Show. So Facebook.com/the Ask April Love Show. And on Twitter, it's Ask April Love. Google me, follow me. I have live events coming up. Oh, and the Pink in December returns, which is a celebration of life. We will be taking care of 3 families because, like I said, the Susan G. Collins, American Cancer Society, different organizations are necessarily going into the communities, and you have women that have been diagnosed who are mothers, who are single mothers, who are still unable to, you don't get disability as soon as you're diagnosed. You have to work towards that. So a lot of them are still working and trying to get through the holidays. So we're going to be a blessing to them, but it's going to be an environment where we have speakers, we'll have vendors, and that's going to be December 16th at Impact. So please follow me, keep in touch with us, and thank you so much, Sierra, for what you're doing. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. And April, I'll definitely include all your links in the description box below. Okay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Legacy Speaks. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and stay connected via Legacy SPKS on everything. Until next time. Yay.